week 11 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to sell and trade this week. The first guy, Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I know Carroll's having a great season, and he's ranked third in fantasy baseball this season, but I just don't see it keeping up for Carroll the whole season. On the year, 13 home runs, 34 RBIs, 49 runs scored, 19 stolen bases, a 313 average, and a 397 on base. So right now, one of the best players I can mention in fantasy baseball. And I think you could get a boatload here for Corbin Carroll, because last season he was up in the major leagues in 105 at-bats, and the numbers still were pretty decent with 4 homers, 14 RBIs, and a 260 average. But right now I think he's playing a little bit over his head, is Corbin Carroll. And he's a guy right now that would sell off, and you could get a good hitter and a pitcher in a deal, I believe, especially if you're down in the standings. In the last 2 weeks, from 5 home runs, 15 RBI, 17 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 426 average, and a 500 on base. So right now, over the last 2 weeks, he's getting on base 50% of the time, and that's not sustainable. So right now, while he's on a crazy hot streak, is Corbin Carroll. I would sell him off June 7th at the Nats, 4 for 5, a homer, 2 RBIs, a stolen base, 3 runs scored. June 9th at the Tigers, 3 for 5, 2 homers, 5 RBIs. June 10th at the Tigers, in that one, 0 for 4. June 11th at the Tigers, 3 for 5, an RBI, a stolen base, 2 runs scored. And June 12th, versus Philly, 2 for 3 with 2 runs and an RBI. So he's been a hit machine, is Corbin Carroll. He's getting on base, he's stealing bases. He's most likely going to be a 30-30 guy this season if he keeps up the pace. But right now I think it's going to drop off a little bit for him. So right now, well, he's most likely a peak value. It's a perfect time to get a good trade package for him this week. The next hit is Nick Castellanos of the Philadelphia Phillies. So Castellanos last season, it was a bad year for him in his first year in Philly, but this season he's come back and they've been their best pure hitter in terms of batting average and getting on base on the season. 8 home runs, 39 RBIs, 42 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 315 average, and a 362 on base. A very good numbers, no doubt about it, for Castellanos. In the last 2 weeks, he's white hot. 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a stolen base, a 380 average, and a 418 on base. He's going out there and he's been getting the job done, and it seems like he's getting 1-2 hits a game easily right now, is Nick Castellanos for this Philly team. After last season, he only hit in the 260s with only 13 home runs. So right now, while he's playing good baseball as well as Castellanos, I think you could trade him for a top of the rotation type of pitcher on your team. June 8th versus the Tigers, 1 for 3. June 9th versus the Dodgers, 1 for 4, run and a rib. June 10th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 3. June 11th versus the Dodgers, 2 for 5, a homer, 2 RBIs. June 12th at the Diamondbacks, 2 for 4 with a run. And June 13th at the Diamondbacks, 1 for 3 with a run and a rib. So right now, playing great baseball is Nick Castellanos, hitting for average, shortening the swing, cutting down on the strikeouts a little bit. But the power still hasn't been there. Even on the season, he still does have 8 home runs, where he'll surpass the 13 he hit last year. But right now, I think Castellanos is playing over his head a little bit, especially with the average, and I would sell him off this week. The next hit is Brian Hayes of the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mentioned Hayes last week as a guy to pick up off the wire, and who's better to pick up a player like Hayes off the wire and flip him for the rotation type of pitcher for your fantasy team? On the year, 4 home runs, 28 RBI, 7 stolen bases, 33 runs scored, a 261 average, and a 304 on base. So right now, Hayes, he's going out there and he's playing good baseball, especially coming off a 5 for 5 game last week versus the New York Mets. In the last couple weeks here, on fire as well. 2 home runs, 11 RBI, 7 runs scored, a stolen base, a 435 average, and a 435 on base. So right now, he's not drawing walks, and he's been hitting that good that he's getting on base, and batting average is the same number, but he's not a patient hitter. He swings early in the count, and right now, batting 6th in the lineup here for this Pirate team. He's doing good, no doubt about it, is Brian Hayes. So right now, if I could pick him up like most people did over the last couple weeks and flip him for a pitcher that's consistent and has a good track record, this would be the time to do it. June 6th versus the A's, 1 for 4. June 7th versus the A's, 3 for 5, a run. June 9th versus the Mets, like I said, career game, 5 for 5, 4 RBIs, 3 runs scored, a stolen base. June 10th versus the Mets, 0 for 4. June 11th versus the Mets, 1 for 4. And June 13th at the Cubs in that one, 1 for 3. So right now, Hayes playing good baseball, but I think it's not going to keep up at this rate, and I would sell him off this week. The next hit is Josh Naylor of the Cleveland Guardians. So now it's been a weird type of year for him, up and down. It seems like he started off slow out of the gate, and now over the last 2-3 weeks is where he's got a majority of his numbers is Josh Naylor. It seems like on the season, 8 home runs, 48 RBIs, 23 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 282 average, and a 330 on base. Are very good numbers. And the last 2 weeks here, he's ranked 3rd in fantasy baseball with crazy numbers: 1 home run, 16 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a stolen base, a 488 average, and a 510 on base. So right now he's driving the baseball. The power number is still not all that great with only 8 home runs on the season, but the average and the on base isn't going to continue for Naylor, where last season we saw him only hit 256. I think he could finish the year 270s, 280s, but right now to be hitting 480 in the last few weeks here is not sustainable. And this Guardian team, besides him and Jose Ramirez, not a lot of power guys in that lineup, and it's one of the weaker offenses in the league. So I think teams are going to start pitching Naylor more carefully as well, and I just don't think these numbers are going to be sustainable. So I think in a deal, you get a good starting pitcher for Naylor. He's got good versatility as well that could be appealing to selling him to an owner, first and outfield. And this would be the time to do it. June 7th versus the Red Sox, 3-for-4 run and a rib. June 8th versus the Red Sox, 2-for-3 a run. June 9th in a wild one, 2-for-7, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. June 10th versus the Astros, 2-for-3, 3 RBIs. June 11th versus Houston, 1-for-4. So right now playing great baseball is Josh Naylor, but I just don't think he's going to keep it up at these levels. He plays in a weak offense where not a lot of good pitches should come his way. If pitchers are going to be more careful with him. And right now he's a sell high candidate. And my 5th and final hitter I look to sell high this week here is Taylor Ward, the Los Angeles Angels. So Taylor Ward, he was off to a horrible start the first 2 months of the season, but he's really got things going over the last 2 weeks here. Is Taylor Ward on the season: 8 home runs, 26 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 38 runs scored, a 243 average, and a 318 on base. But the last 2 weeks here, 4 homers, 9 RBIs, 10 runs scored, a stolen base, a 341 average, and a 412 on base. So right now, Ward, the last few weeks, he's picked it up after last season having a career year with 23 homers, 65 RBIs, and a 280 average. So yeah, he plays in a great offense with 2 great hitters like Trout and Ohtani really leading the way, and other solid guys like Hunter Renfroe, Zach Neto, and Anthony Rendon. But right now, Taylor Ward, like I said, the first 2 months of the season, he really didn't do much, and I would sell him off here after the last 2 weeks. He's starting to get things going. June 8th versus the Cubs, 1-for-3, an RBI, a stolen base. June 9th versus the Mariners, 0-for-4 run. June 11th versus the Mariners, 1-for-2, a homer, and that one, 2 runs scored. June 12th at Texas, 2-for-5, 3 runs. And June 13th at Texas, and that one, 0-for-3. So right now, while he's playing good baseball, and he's been the leadoff batter for this Los Angeles Angel team, he's definitely a hitter I look to sell high this week. And I think you could get another bat in deal with a position need like a middle infielder, a shorter second baseman, or just the starting pitcher. So that's a few hitters I look to sell and trade here in week 11 of the fantasy baseball season.